so the clutch, rear main seal, sump, is everything's back in now. The only thing left to do is get the gearbox back in. Once you've got the gearbox back in, obviously the auxiliaries, starter motor, drive shafts, lower control arm brace, and then that's all done from the mechanical side. I probably won't get to the wiring today, so we'll just sort out all the mechanical stuff now. Obviously put the oil back in the motor because right now the sump's empty. So yeah, once that's done, I can get onto the wiring. We've got a second-hand Dictator ECU, and we've got a brand new wiring harness. So then this car currently runs the factory ECU with a piggyback chip. So we'll obviously remove the chip from the wiring harness and then splice the Dictator into the factory harness. So it's just really to the throttle position sensor, the injectors, the distributor, where the hall sender unit is. There's some wires to there. Obviously, that on these things, the hall sender or the distributor is basically your crank pickup on most other vehicles. So this thing takes its crank pickup off of the distributor, which runs off an auxiliary shaft. So yeah, anyway, it takes its signal from there. And then water temperature and one or two other auxiliaries. So it's not a hell of a lot of wiring, but obviously now it's tracing the existing wires to make inside the car and then connecting up there. Otherwise you've got to just run new wiring and then you've got a whole lot of duplicates, which I don't really like. Okay guys, progress report. Gearbox is in, starter motor, mountings, that's all tight. I've got to now just put the drive shafts in. So drive shafts, and then there's a lower control arm brace that runs between what would be a subframe on most cars. Obviously on the Mark 1 it's part of the unibody. So yeah, but yeah, everything else is done. It's literally just the drive shafts. Clutch cables hooked up, starter motors hooked up and wired, mountings are all done, so yeah, that's it. Hey guys, it's been about 2 days since I last worked on this car. I had some customer stuff to sort out in the interim, so got that out of the way. Anyway, back on Dan's car. What I've done, I've pre-laid, well, let's get to the start of it. We're changing out the management system on this car. This car's got an old, it's got a factory ECU that it was running off, and then it had what they call a piggyback chip. So it obviously just uses a couple of inputs, alters them, and then obviously runs back through the, so it intercepts them between the ECU and obviously where they're going to the sensors and whatnot. So then it obviously alters them and sends out the corrected signal to the sensors and whatnot. Obviously change the fueling, change the timing, that sort of stuff. Anyway, it's a really old system. Obviously the factory ECU, I think, was manufactured in 2001, and then the piggyback system is probably just as old. Basically, that's the battery positive and negative. Obviously being a race car, let me get this angle right. Obviously being a race car, the positive won't go onto the battery positive, it'll go onto the kill switch. So in the event of a Marshall or Dan shutting it down on the kill switch, it cuts power to the ECU. So yeah, but basically that's battery positive and negative. Then another one that we've laid down here is trigger signal, that is water temperature. There's negatives that go with those as well. Obviously the water signal T's on here, the distributor signal T's on there, and then we've got a whole bunch of other ones running down here. So basically these ones are the brown and red and yellow are injectors. This one is coil. This is throttle body. So those obviously all get worked down there. And then yeah, there's a auxiliary negative that we could use on the air temp, but we don't actually wire that in on the setup. And then yeah, here you can see is the jumper harness for the Dictator, and then obviously, oops, we're running the Dictator in the cubby, so I'll secure that in there. Obviously it's wired to the back. There's the fuel pump relay, and then there's a couple of wires here. So obviously we've got switching power, main power, and rev counter to the signal to the rev counter. So those will run under the dashboard that way. Okay guys, bit of an update. I didn't film it, but basically I've traced everything here. So I've gone through the wiring harness. So this is the plug to the throttle body, and we only use 3 wires out of that. So I've marked them with labels. There's the 3, and those are the 3 corresponding wires from the management that now need to be soldered into there to obviously get the signal to the ECU. So I've done that, and then now that I know what goes where, it's a matter of just splicing in and soldering them, and then insulating them again. So I'll stick that on a time lapse. Now that I've done all the diagram, working it out and everything, it should be fairly straightforward. So probably take about an hour to solder and seal everything in the engine bay. So yeah, I just took a break for lunch, but yeah, the throttle body section is wired in, the injectors are wired in, the coil is wired in. Obviously the last thing that I'll do is the power, the positive and negative, and then now the only thing left to do in the engine bay is the water temperature and the trigger from the distributor. So yeah, if we go back in here, obviously, like I showed you earlier, the dictator harness runs through the through the firewall there, and then obviously these wires run down. This is the auxiliary fuel pump, like I said earlier, and then we've obviously, like I said as well, got positive, switching positive, and what was this one? Rev counter. But yeah, for the most part, everything else is wired together. There's 1 or 2 wires that just need to be tucked away down there by the fuse box. There's like I said, there's that secondary fuel pump up at the front with the surge tank. That one, there's some. I've actually laid some extra wiring there. We've had a bit of a brainwave. Basically, what happens is the main tank high pressure pump feeds the surge tank in front, and then the surge tank obviously feeds another high pressure pump that then feeds the fuel rail. And what we've had before is they hook up, if you hook the pumps up on the same line and the car runs out of gas, then what happens is both pumps are running, but there's no fuel in the front pump to lubricate it, and the front pump ends up seizing. So what we're doing there is I'm wanting to put a switch in that line to that front pump's positive supply. So I've run some extra cabling that I can feed it back to the dashboard here by the driver, that he can flip a switch. If the car does run out of fuel and he wants to prime the front tank, he can prime the pump without running the front fuel pump. So also say you can prime the rear pump to get fuel to the front pump before he switches the front pump on. So it's not a performance thing, it's really just to save the pump. Guys, we're back at the shop. It's the next day. Dan's here as well. We've got the car, the bucky and the trailer, so we're going to load up now and head off to the dyno and see what power the car makes. Car fired up yesterday, but sitting overnight, it seems to not want to start now. So, but again, like I said, we've got the wrong map on the car, so that's probably got something to do with it. And probably with all the testing yesterday, it drew a bit of current off the battery, so we're taking the battery charger with, and then while we wait to get on the rollers, we'll just give it a bit of a quick charge there. So yeah, now we're going to stick it on the trailer and see how it goes. Cape Town showing off the table mountain in the background there. Hey guys, so we've got to the dyno, we've offloaded the car, it's sitting over here waiting to go on. They're just finishing up with another vehicle, and then yeah, we're up. Spoke to the tuner, he said yeah, no, with this multi-valve tune in the engine, it's definitely not going to want to run properly. So the fact that I even got it to start up is pretty impressive. So yeah, but I'm still a little bit worried about that throttle actuator having the polarity reversed. So then that'll obviously, like I explained earlier, when you give with 100% throttle it says 0, when you got 0 throttle it says 100. So we'll just check that out now when we plug it in and see. But yeah, the car's on charge now because the battery was a little bit drained this morning, and when we tried to crank it, it didn't really want to start. So we put it on charge while he's been busy with the other car, and we'll stick it up now. It's just finished with this other vehicle, showing to the customer there, and then once they're done, we're up. So let's see how it goes. Hey guys, we plugged the car, rolled the car onto the rollers. We wanted to strap it down, but we got to obviously first get the car straight, and then for that we're going to get the car started. So just doing a couple of checks, and we realized that we did have issues with the throttle body, as I suspected. The throttle response wasn't working as it should. After double checking all the wiring, everything's good. We traced everything back to the ECU, did continuity checks, and I think everything's in the right place, everything's working like it should in that aspect. But it turns out the throttle body itself, this unit, is dead. So we were just busy going to fetch another one and check that one, make sure that one works. And if that's the case, then we can obviously get the car fired up and start tuning. So for now, we're just waiting for the other throttle body to arrive, and then hopefully that solves our problem. Okay guys, so we just left the dyno, loaded the car on the trailer and everything. We found a rogue earth wire. It was supposed to be a 5-volt positive. It ended up being earthed somewhere in the car. So after a bit of tracing, we sorted that out. It wasn't the throttle body. I had wired it all correctly. So yeah, that was the issue there. Herman was very helpful there with tracing it and sorting it out. And then anyway, he got on and started tuning it, did a tune. Power was dipping off towards the end of the graph. He managed to get it to hold on, so we're quite happy with the tune. It's not the maximum power for the series, but again, if we try and get the maximum power, it's not in a usable spot. So I said to him, rather go back, we'll take the lesser power, but where the graph is more user friendly. But yeah, then Dan took it up and down the road just to give it a feel. How'd it feel?
Yeah, I felt very much more responsive than what it was. Obviously, what I'm used to is the motor before was quite poked. The pistons used to like rattle in the cylinders. We took what 20 Newton meters.
Yeah, it's about 15 to 20 down. Yeah.
So it was nice to drive the car with a nice responsive throttle, and I'm excited to get it back onto the track and see how it pulls out of turn 3.
Yeah, so right now the oil leak problem that we had on the rear main seal, that's been ticked off. The dyno now has been ticked off. We've got some problems. When I had the gearbox out, I found those bushes were a bit dodgy. They look like they're crumbling, so those are on order. Those should be coming in on Monday or Tuesday. So that's the last thing we'll have to do there, is just get those new control arm bushes in. Then we can redo the wheel alignment, make sure the car's pointing in the right direction. Tune's done. We still have the monograde oil in the motor, so for the running in. So we'll give that a swap out and put some new oil in for the Trackday. So yeah, wheel alignment, control arm bushes, oil change, and then we're good to go burn some laps.
Maybe some paint, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll do the paint before the Trackday, but we'll definitely get the paint done before the start of the season next year. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we'll definitely have it out on next week Saturday, and yeah, see if we can spit out some times. Obviously the track will be very hot. It's December. It's not the best time for competitive lap times, obviously with a warm track and warm air and all the rest of that, and obviously the track day is middle of the day. So I think we'll probably be about, if we're anywhere near pace, it'll probably be about a second off lap record pace, and if you're in that ballpark, then you're doing well. So yeah, let's see how next weekend goes.